Hello everyone, Colin Canet back for Woodwork Web. And today we're carrying on with our one-piece box, and today we're going to be talking about the stand, making the stand. And it may look like it's fairly simple, and it's not that complex, but there's a few little individualities that you should know about that's worth making a separate video for, because you can use these techniques in many other things that you do. Now for our one-piece box, we are using a 5" by 5" by 3/4 inch piece of wood. And this is just some scrap that we have laying around. Now, of course, your box is going to be separate and off to the side. And what we're going to be doing on the edges, we're actually going to be cutting a bit of a slope to it, or a little bit of an ogee, what they call an ogee or a Roman ogee. So it's going to be around. But then underneath, we're actually going to take a divot out of this area down in here, and we're going to use the same bit to do that with. We're just going to use a lower angle of it. And the purpose of that is to make the box look like it's sitting on 4 separate little feet. And we'll do a close-up of our finished box so that you can see what that looks like. So here's one of our finished boxes, and you can see how it appears to be sitting on 4 little feet. But in fact, when you lift it up, it is actually just one piece of board. And when you look at this, this has been actually painted black. In fact, what I've done with this, I've actually used a black felt pen, because when the box is sitting and you see it at that angle, it appears, it gives the illusion that it's black or dark underneath, so that when you set that box down, it looks like it's lifted off with the feet, that the feet have lifted the box off. And it's just one of the tricks. You know, if you're not using one of these little things in your workroom, you're missing out on a lot of secrets that woodworkers have been using for years and years, and this is one of them, a little bit of illusion. Now here's just the stand by itself, and you can see, if I turn it to the right angle, you can actually see how the sides of it, we've got a little bit of an angle on the sides, and then we have this little bit of a cutaway on the front. And when it comes to finishing, you're going to want to dye that or put the felt pen in there before you finish it, in case some gets on the face of it, you can easily sand it off. So that's what we're going to do. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the round over, the ogee on the sides, and you can see what that looks like. Okay, I've already used the template to set the height of my router bit, and I've isolated the bearing. I've left the bearing on, and I've already isolated the bearing. Now all I need to do is to run my wood through that bit. And remember, we always use the short grain, the cross grain first. And there's our board. We have a little bit of burning on here, and I found that many times if you just simply run that through another time, you can get rid of most of that. So I'm just going to run this board through one more time and see if I can get rid of that little bit of burning. And there's still a little bit there, but we'll be able to sand that off. Now the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut that little divot out of this area. And in order to do that, we need to remove the bearing. So I'm going to do that off camera and reset that up so you don't have to sit through all of that. Okay, now what I've done is I have reset. I've taken the bearing off the top. You can see the bearings off the top. Now because everything on a router is centered to the very center of the bit, what we can do in this case is once these two are set, and they're just about set right now, I can actually mark out, for example, an inch, 1 inch on this side and 1 inch on that side, and that means that if I go in on that 1 inch side like that and move across to the other one, it will give me a perfect cut across there. Now in this case I think I'm actually going to go about 3/4 of an inch, but I'm going to do a test cut and see what that looks like. Okay, I've set that to 3/4 of an inch from the very center on each side. So in theory I would just need to push the board in like that, run it along there and pull it back out. But I'm just going to do a test. I'm just going to push it in with this scrap piece of wood and just do a test on that. And there's what that looks like. That looks like that's about 3/4 of an inch out. It's a little bit shorter than what I think I'm going to go for. I think I'm going to move it out to 1 inch and try that. There, that's better. I like that. Okay, let's get prepared to cut those divots out. Now one of the things that I found in using a router, and if you've done this you'll have noticed this as well, often when you're cutting in and then moving along like that, because the bit is spinning in this direction, it wants to hurl the wood back this way. And very often when you push in like this, it'll want to make a sudden little urge like that, and it makes a bad cut up in there. So what I'm doing, I've actually got a little piece of wood, just a piece of scrap, that is actually clamped to the router table so that when I push this in like this, it can't move the wood backwards, and moving it this way is the natural way you move it anyway. So I'm going to use this as my start and this as my stop, and the height is already set, so let's go ahead and make that cut. And there are the 4 cuts that we've made. And you can see there's a little bit of sanding that needs to happen. There's our base, all ready to go. So making the base for a one-piece box was really pretty simple once we set up the router and we knew what we were going to do, and we prevented the wood from sliding back and forth with that little stop stick. The next thing we need to do is move on to the finishing, and I think you'll find the finishing part of this actually a little bit interesting because we're also going to be doing some flocking of the inside of this little box. So, I'm Colin Cadet for Woodwork Web. If you haven't already, we invite you to please subscribe to us and check out our website for the detailed article that goes along with making not only the base but also the one-piece box.